So this house that I've got, the roof is original from 1983. It's currently 2021, so that puts this roof at pretty heckin' old. So I'm going to be replacing it. So first thing I want to do before I even go into buying anything is I want to find the slope of my roof, and there are a couple ways to do this. So I'm going to show you a way if you have an angle finder, and then another way too. So the run being standard 12 inches horizontal, we want to know how much rise the roof goes up in 12 inches, right? So we're going to start with my angle finder here, and so we've got a reading of, let's say, around 20 degrees is what we'll use, and then I'll show you on the whiteboard how to actually work out the math. So here we are on the whiteboard. So we have our standard run of 12 inches. We're trying to find the rise, which is x, and we measured a 20-degree horizontal. So this would be the roof. So that angle the angle finder was picking up was really right here. So we subtract 20 from 90 to get 70 degrees. That would be the angle in here. And then we can set up our equation. Tangent of 70 degrees is going to be equal to opposite over adjacent, so 12 over x. Rearranging, x is going to be equal to 12 over tangent of 70, and here we get our x is 4.3 inches. So our slope is 4.3 inches divided by 12 inches. So we gain 4.3 inches in a 12-inch run. So another way to do this, it would be easy if you could take measurements from the total side of your house, and so we could measure like from point to point and then up and down and measure the total rise over run of the entire roof. But another thing I can do, since I have this eave right here, is I can kind of do it here. So I'm going to measure the rise being from the top there to where this comes down, and then the run being the horizontal distance here. So I kind of approximated using like a level that this comes right across to here. And so the measurement right here, let me see if I can show you guys. Come on, tape measure, work with me. So my measurement here was about 23 inches. That's our rise. And then my run across, I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand, but from here to here was 58 inches. So if you were to do it the measurement way, so this being the roof of the house, if you could measure the distance here, that would be your run, and the distance here, that would be your rise. So in my little example, under the eave, I had a rise of 23 inches and then a run of 58 inches. And so you do that, and we're going to get a decimal point, and we're going to multiply it by 12 inches, and that gave me about, I think it was 4.4 inches, so very close to what I got earlier. But anyway, so I'm in the about 4.3, 4.4 inch range for my rise over run. So the reason I was calculating the slope, as you can see here, so FYI, this is a package of shingles. It has all the instructions you need to redo a roof pretty much right here, which is great. But so if you come here to the underlayment, so that's what goes under the shingles, there are different categories for how to lay it down based on the slope of the roof, and I'm a low slope roof based on what I just found out. So that means I'm going to have to do a different pattern of just for the underlayment. It doesn't affect the shingles themselves, so it's not a big deal, but for the underlayment we'll be doing a different pattern, which I'll get into. So when ordering the shingles, so you have two choices. One is architectural, one is 3-tab. Architectural is slightly more expensive, but just more modern, more finished. My roofing friend who did this for a living recommended the architectural for me. The other thing you want to note of is that generally there's a normal price of $37 and a bulk price. So if you measure all the measurements of your foot and find the square footage, and then you can divide by, this is 32.8 square foot per bundle, you can figure out how many you need. I needed 49. So just a note though, you want to order them all at once, and if you don't have a truck, I'm just going to order them for delivery the next day. It costs $79, but it's way more worth it than making multiple trips in my car, because not only are these things heavy and would probably mess up the springs in my car, but should be pretty easy. We rented a U-Haul moving van, and Home Depot loaded in with a forklift over a pallet worth of shingles for us, making it pretty easy. Alright, so we've got most of the roof undone, pretty much just pulling it all up. This was all done with staples, but there's this shingle shovel that you can see she's using that you can buy that makes it a lot easier. It's got some teeth, and yeah. So now we've got most of the decking revealed, so we're going to make sure it's smooth, clean it, remove all these staples that are in here. If there's a bad piece of decking, you can just pull it and replace it. It's just 3/4 inch plywood pretty much. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So now that the deck is clean, we're putting down the ice and water shield first. So certain states have minimums for the amount of coverage you need for this. This roll comes in just under 3 feet. I'm just going to do that. So we're going to just sweep and make sure we didn't miss any staples as we go. I measured it out up here so it'd be easier than dealing with it on the edge. We measured it out, cut it, and now this will just kind of glues down, but then I'll put in some staples with the staple gun as well, and then that'll be it. We used one whole roll of the ice and rain barrier, 66 feet. Here we covered a little bit of the sides, and now we're putting down the underlayment and stapling it again per the directions, generally on the big red dots and then in the middle dots. But yeah, come along well. But just a note, there is something called a drip edge flashing, which is basically a little piece of sheet metal that goes right over every edge to help protect the edges since those see the most damage. I'm not using those here, just basically on the recommendation of a roofing friend. But if you do, it's going to affect your starter roll. So that's what we're about to begin with, is our starter roll. So you can actually buy a starter roll and lay it out, or what we're going to do is take a regular roll of shingles and you cut 5 5/8 inches off the bottom of it, and then what's left on top becomes the starter roll. And so you always want to start in the bottom left corner, and so we'll lay down the shingles in the corner, and sorry, I'm not getting that close to the edge, and the shingles are going to overhang by 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And to make sure of that, so we'll measure how much of that top shingle we have, and we'll do a chalk line across. I'll show you guys that in a second. So we cut 5 5/8 inch off the lower edge, so where like the tabs of the shingles are. So this is what we're left with. And then just for the very first one, we're going to cut 6 1/2 inches off, so that way it's staggered. And then the nailing pattern for the starter course is a little different too. We're just going to zip in 5 nails, approximately 2 to 3 inches up from the edge. And this is going to overhang by 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and that's because we don't have the drip edge flashing. If we did have that, we would not overhang this. The best way to cut these is with a hooked razor blade. This is the very first starting shingle. So it's overhanging by 1/2 inch to 1 inch on either side. We cut the 5 5/8 inch off, and so this is going to go in. We're going to zip in 5 nails, 2 to 3 inches from the edge, so just somewhere in the middle. And then the next layer is just going to go right next to it all the way across. So right now I'm going to do some math based on the footage of the roof, see how many I'm going to need, cut them all, and then get my roofing nailer, which is brand new, and zip these all in. And then every other row is going to be different than this. This is going to be by far the hardest row because we have to cut every shingle. So I've got my pancake compressor on the roof. Hopefully it doesn't slide off as it vibrates, we'll see. But then I've got a 50-foot hose over to my roofing nailer. Make sure you put some pneumatic tool oil in here before you use it every few hours. And yeah, so like I said, we're going to zip in 5 nails real quick. What this starter course is starting to look like. See, I just zipped a couple nails in. Any that are sticking up, I'm going to pull out or hammer in. I'll get practice and get better with the nail gun. You can set the depth of the nails. So I have 1.5 inch nails. You probably want at least 1.25 inches to go through all 3/4 inch of plywood plus 2 layers of shingles. I have the smooth shank. You can buy ring shank too. They grip better. They cost a little more. The other thing is I have my pressure set at 85. I would test it out. What I did is I tested it on a piece of plywood and 2 shingles to see the kind of penetration you want. 85 works for me. You can also set it a little with the adjustment knob here. I have it set all the way up with 85 psi, and it's working beautifully. Next row, which is really the first row after the starter roll, just a full shingle lining up on the edge. We did our chalk line, and now so the nail pattern here for my slope of roof is 1 inch from either end, and then 2 a foot in, so kind of 4 nails kind of just spaced evenly. And the trick with this gun, here I'll try to show you, is it's going to be hard to do with one hand, but you hold the trigger before you go down and then you just zip them in. Let's see, just like that. Beautiful. And now we're going to go straight across. So again, just following the box directions, but for the second course we cut the edge by 6 1/2 inches. The only advice I have is I made the cut here. You want to make the cut on the other side in case your cut isn't perfectly straight. But after that, every course just goes on top. The next course we're cutting 13 inches. Next course will be 19 1/2, and so on. It's just to give it a staggered, I don't know if it's for appearance or to help the rain wash off, but we're just going to do this all the way up. So one word of advice is you're definitely going to need a dumpster for this project. I wish I'd thought of it sooner, because I could have had them park the dumpster right here where these shingles currently are, and then I could have been throwing stuff off the roof right into the dumpster. Yeah, it cost me about $400 to rent. Highly recommend. You're going to need it. So when you have an exhaust or a sewer vent, so both for the rain barrier, the underlayment, and the shingles. We just basically lay it down and cut around it to leave the hole blank. Then what we're going to do is, it's highly recommended to replace the flashing itself. You can buy these at Home Depot. I have some right here. They're about 10 bucks a piece, and you can cut this rubber to fit the size of the vent pipe. But anyway, and then we're going to use some caulk underneath the flashing as we caulk the flashing down, and then the next layer of shingles will actually go one on top of the flashing. So this should be exposed, but this should be covered by a shingle. What it looks like, I put the caulking and I put some nails from nail gun in it, and then this top shingle will go on top while the bottom of the flashing is exposed. So we've got the entire roof done besides the ridge right here. So we bought these Pro Edge hip and ridge shingles. They're a little different, like you can see, so you fold them and then they're perforated so you can tear them. And so what you have to do first is figure out the prevailing wind direction in your area, or if you're replacing your deck, obviously pay attention to how it was. And so for me, the wind is coming from the, so it would be blowing into the camera right now, right? So we want the highest shingle to be over there. So what that means is we're going to start over here and, for instance, put one hip and ridge down, and then the next one is going to go over it and cover it. And there's about a 6-inch exposure, and then the next one, and then the next one, etc. See what I mean with the lowest one over here? And so it'll go all the way like that. And then we're putting 4 nails in, 2 on each side, said 1 inch and 2 inches up. Or it's actually supposed to be over here, so it gets covered by the other shingle. And anyway, and then it also recommends you can do a second layer, but we're going to stick with just this. The roof is finished. It took about 4 days of work between 2 people. I saved probably 6 to 7 grand. It cost me just shy of 3 grand to do it myself. I think it's worth it. Definitely learned a little, and also the price I spent includes the cost of the tools, like this pancake compressor and nail gun I bought, which I'll get to keep, and that was like 500 bucks right there. So pretty good. Yeah, looks good, looks professional. Last thing I'd recommend is you can buy one of these magnet caddies from AutoZone. You can see it's picked up some stuff, so that way whether you have a ton of staples or nails, I'm sure you're gonna have a ton from the old roof in your yard or driveway, and this will just help you make sure that you get them all, especially in the driveway, so you're not popping your own tires.